Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. Also to those members of the press and the public who are joining us via the live stream. Before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind everyone to turn mobiles and computers to silent and ensure that when using the microphones, the red light is on and then turned off when you have finished speaking. We now go to agenda item number 1, and I would like to ask member services if we have any apologies for absence. Joe.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. We've had apologies today from Councillor David Connor. Chairing the meeting today will be the Vice Chairman of the Planning Committee, Councillor Charlie Marks. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Agenda item number 2 is to confirm and sign the minutes from the meeting of the 4th of March 2026. Do I have a proposer to approve the minutes of the meeting of March the 4th? Councillor French. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mafferdon. Does any member have any comments to make on the minutes? Please raise your hand. No? The minutes of the 4th of March are agreed. We now go to agenda item number 3, which is urgent items. There are none. Agenda item number 4 is declarations of interest. Member services will go to each councillor in turn, and can you please state if you have anything to declare in relation to any agenda items?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Joe. Just I'm a member of Chatteris Town Council, but take no part in planning. But I know Matthew Hall, which I declare every month, same reasons as before.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. French. Nothing. Thank you. Councillor Mafferdon.
Thank you. A member of Wisbech Town Council, but I do not take part in planning. I know Matthew Hall at professional level, and also I'm a member of IDBs. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gershner.
Thank you. I'm a member of Whittlesea Town Council. I occasionally sit in as a member of the public and listen to planning at Whittlesea, but I take no part, no voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marks.
Thank you. I'm a member of Mainey Parish Council, and I also attend on occasions Chatteris Town Council. However, I take no part in any planning. Apart from that, nothing.
Thank you. Councillor Purser.
Yes, I'm a member of March Town Council, take no part in any planning, but also have Mr. Matt Hall has done work for me in the past. I'll approach everything with an open mind anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Joe. We now go to the main part of the meeting. Members should only make a proposal on a planning application when invited. However, I will initially be asking if anybody is going to propose the officer's recommendations. Clearly, if no such proposal is forthcoming or it fails, the proposal fails, I will then be looking for an alternative proposal. Members are reminded that any such proposal should be accompanied by policy planning reasons for going against the officer's recommendation. I will now hand over to Hayley Parker-Haynes, Senior Development Officer, to present agenda item number 5, FYR 23-1033F.
Thank you, Chairman. This application seeks planning permission for the erection of 21 dwellings and was reported to Planning Committee on the 23rd of July 2025, whereby members resolved to grant planning permission subject to the completion of a Section 106. Following the committee resolution, but prior to the completion of the Section 106, a viability assessment was submitted to evidence that the scheme is no longer capable of supporting the previously agreed level of affordable housing and financial contributions. This has been independently reviewed, whereby it's concluded and agreed that the scheme could viably deliver either no affordable housing and £186,500 in financial contributions, or 2 affordable housing units and no financial contributions. This is the location plan and aerial photography, the proposed site plan, street scenes, and photographs of the site and surrounding area. The principle of residential development in this location remains acceptable. The site forms a small extension to an established market town. There were no substantive concerns previously identified in relation to character, design, residential amenity, highways, ecology or drainage. The only matter requiring reassessment is the overall planning balance in light of the revised viability evidence. It is recognised that viability constraints are a long-standing and well-evidenced issue within Fenland. The Council has historically accepted reduced planning obligations where this has been justified through robust and independently reviewed viability evidence. A consistent approach in this regard is an important material consideration and carries moderate weight in the decision-making process. In addition, the proposal represents the redevelopment of a brownfield site in a sustainable location adjoining an established settlement. Such development is supported by both national and local planning policy objectives. Whilst the under-provision of mitigation is regrettable, the reuse of previously developed land and the delivery of housing in a sustainable location weigh in favour of the scheme. The option of securing the £186,500 towards education and healthcare infrastructure is considered to deliver greater overall benefit than the provision of 2 affordable units in this instance. The funding, as requested, has been advised it will go towards improving capacity at George Clare Surgery and the expansion of Cromwell Community College and the primary school phase as well as early years provision. On balance and having regard to the viability evidence, it is considered that in this instance the reduced level of planning obligations when compared to the benefits of the scheme is considered to not result in such harm as to warrant a refusal. The application is accordingly recommended for approval. The conditions as set out in the report remain unchanged from those agreed during the July 2025 committee, notably conditions 12, which is the construction method statement, including wheel washing facilities, and conditions 18 to 21, which deal with highway works, including construction to binder course and securing a scheme for the improvement works. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. We now have one speaker on this application. I would like to invite or ask Kate Wood, the agent, to make her presentation to the committee. You have 5 minutes. Could I ask that you introduce yourself before you start speaking?
Thank you, Chairman, members. My name is Kate Wood. I am the agent for this planning application. You may recall granting planning permission for this development last July, subject to the signing of a Section 106 agreement. During that legal process, the applicant started to work on obtaining costs for the construction of the development and the associated road improvement. In doing so, it became apparent that materials and build costs have risen significantly, such that the development would not be viable. The applicant therefore sought advice from a viability consultant who worked through the calculations and suggested that there were 2 options to make the scheme viable. These were firstly the loss of all financial contributions and the retention of just 2 of the 5 affordable dwellings, or secondly, the loss of all 5 affordable units but the retention of £186,500 of financial contributions towards the doctor's surgery and education. Given that our experience when this application was previously considered was that improvements to the doctor's surgery were important to local people, and given that the council has granted permission for 70 affordable units literally just further up West Street, we decided that the second option of no affordable units and keeping the financial contributions was the most appropriate way forward. We therefore put this to your planning officers, who you will see from the reports have agreed with the approach. Officers have had the viability assessment verified by your own consultants and their quantity surveyor, which has now led to this point whereby we are asking you to agree the change to the Section 106 agreement than was previously understood. I confirm that no changes at all are proposed to the development, which you approved unanimously last year. The proposal before you is solely related to the Section 106 agreement. It is regrettable that we're unable to provide the full range of planning obligations, but we note that this has been the same issue with other recent planning permissions in Chatteris, where we've noticed that in some cases no affordable housing and all financial contributions no affordable contributions have been able to be offered. Within this scheme, the financial contributions will help to make the development sustainable and to accommodate the new residents into the community. I would also especially point out that this scheme includes the upgrading of the length of West Street, which you will have seen on the site plan, and that will be an additional benefit to those in the vicinity and to those using the route for dog walking and to access the Pocket Park, which is located further south. The application scheme is the only opportunity to provide this upgrade to West Street and to formalise the public footpath. The scheme will also facilitate the removal of the existing industrial buildings on the site, which contain asbestos, and enable the proprietor of that business to move to more modern premises elsewhere where they can continue to grow. I therefore commend the planning officer's report to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to invite members to put questions to Ms Wood. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. Councillor French.
Thank you, Ms Wood. Can you tell me the difference between offering 186,000 against building two affordables?
So the difference, I think the actual amount in terms of difference is in your report. But from our point of view, it doesn't make any difference in terms of actual numbers, because the calculation is a specific figure, and how do you spend that specific figure? Do you spend it on a combination of affordable housing and financial contributions to education and healthcare, or do you spend it all on affordable and a bit less, or what? And so the choice has been made that we shouldn't have the two affordable units. Many reasons for that, partly because there is, I think just last year, planning permission was granted for 70, a whole affordable scheme of 70 units just up the road. So it's not like this area of Chatteris is without its affordable units, although obviously there's a need across the district. But the other point is that if you build two affordable units in a relatively isolated position from other affordable units, management is an issue. So you can't get a housing association to take on just 2 units. They're not interested, so we've probably struggled to achieve that. And so obviously, as your officer has said in her report, it makes more sense to take the money, which then of course means that the people who move into this development are contributing to the needs that they have created by moving in.
Thank you for that explanation. That doesn't help the 3,000 people who are on the council waiting list.
I absolutely agree, and your officer in her report said the same. She said the delivery of 2 units in isolation would not materially influence the overall supply or address the identified shortfall in any meaningful way. That was the officer report, paragraph 4.37. So absolutely agreed, there is a need for affordable housing. Nobody is disputing that at all. All that this development can do is to accommodate it as much as possible, and the way that it's accommodated its residents is by contributing to the doctor's surgery and education, which of course then benefits more people anyway.
Councillor Reg.
Yeah, thank you for that. As I'm quite sure you're well aware, county council have a duty to educate kids. We don't have a duty to supply the Section 106 for them. Obviously, the doctor's surgery, we welcome that, because this committee introduced that several months ago, that we would be asking for a contribution to whatever else. But thank you for that.
Councillor Benny.
Good afternoon. Very disappointed that we're having to come back and bring this back. I mean, we only passed this last year, and I appreciate since Mr. Trump has started his war in Iran, oil prices have gone high. But this application was put in well before that, and I don't think that there's that much of a change in building costs between when this application was approved and when you put the second application in. So rather disappointed about that, but we are where we are. What are your proposed mix for, my computer's not loading up properly, between health service, or between the doctor's surgery and education, please?
Do you mean the actual amount? That's in your report, so we will get there. it would be, I can't put my finger on it in here. Basically, the 186,500 is 90% of the original amount that was required. So it would, but I don't know how it's split between the affordable and the surgery. I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Councillor Reddy, shall we ask officers? Okay. Any further questions? No? Thank you. I would now like to invite members to put questions to officers. If you'd like to do so, please raise your hand. Councillor Reddy.
Surprise question for David here. Can you tell us what the split is between education and doctor's surgery and Chatteris, please?
Sorry, I was trying to find the exact figures, but it works out so that each of the total amounts receive 90% of their original asking amount. I do have the email, and I will come back to you with the breakdown of actual monetary value.
It's just from my perspective, I would rather see the money going towards the doctor's surgery than to the education. As Councillor French said, education, the government has a duty to educate children, and healthcare at Chatteris is actually quite good, and I'd like to keep it that way if I can as a local councillor. And I'd rather see that money going to there. I know from being on the patient participation group, they are always looking for funding, and they're going to need it long term as the housing grows, and that covers everybody of all ages, not just children, and children will always be educated, and that's the reason for my question.
No, that's fine. I found the figures. So the NHS, 90% of their total amount would have been £16,243, and education, 90% of their requested amount would have been £170,257.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, and very well done for finding this quickly.
Further questions to officers? No? Thank you, everybody. I would now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Councillor French.
Thank you. I'll just repeat what I said before. I think it's unfortunate that once again a developer comes back, we get the permission 1 year to come back with a viability. It's very disappointing for this committee. We spent a long time discussing this application last summer. As I said before, education can't have a duty to educate. We don't have a duty to supply the 106, and I'm disappointed that it's not going into affordable housing.
Thank you. Any further questions? Oh, sorry, any further debate? Councillor Benny.
Yeah, the only thing is, like I say, I would rather see more of this money going to the doctor's surgery in Chatteris. The education, 170,000 in education money is a drop in the ocean, and £16,000 doesn't go far enough to help provide the first line of healthcare that we deserve in Chatteris. I know that the George Clare surgery has got plans to expand as Chatteris is growing. We're having these houses built, and they are going to need money to build it, because it's not an NHS practice, it's a private practice, and they have to raise the money privately, or from a business perspective for the surgery. The site can cope with 17,000 people, which we are not near yet, but the surgery does need to build to be able to cope with the amount of development we're doing. And I really feel that money that is on offer there, I would rather see those figures swapped around, or if not in whole, given to the George surgery. And I'd certainly like to see it ring fenced for Chatteris. I know there's other places in the village or in the district, but also a lot of people outside of Chatteris use George Clare surgery, so it isn't just for Chatteris. But the surgery is doing well because it's done well with its recruitments, and there's always a few people that whinge and moan, but generally the health service there is good, and I want to keep that there for the people of Chatteris, and that covers all age groups of people.
Thank you. I have to say, I agree. I think it's back to front, the monies. I have spoken to the legal officer, and I'd like to bring him in at this point to see if we can, in some way, either swap it round, change the figures, or alternatively ring fence it. Sorry, David.
Thank you, through Chairman. If I could probably just come in ahead of the legal officer, just to point out to members that the NHS only actually requested a total contribution of £18,000 in respect of this development. So we're looking at slightly less than that now. There's £16,000, but in terms of members being in a position to justifiably ask for a greater level of contribution, it would be unreasonable, I think, for members to be seeking anything over that £18,000 which the NHS have actually asked for.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It would be actually unlawful to require more funds than are needed to be allocated towards the medical facilities, because you can't by Reg 106 require an extra amount beyond what is actually required.
Okay, Councillor Benny.
Okay, I accept the legal argument, but the NHS does not run the surgery. It is run as a private business, as most surgeries are, and the surgery has to bid from the NHS to get funding, and I know they struggle with that. And although the NHS maybe hasn't opened its mouth large enough to ask for this money, I know that on the ground the surgery needs this money for the work it's planning to do to ensure that the healthcare continues. If you look at Sutton down the road, they were going to lose their surgery, and I would do anything to keep George Clare in Chatteris and not have it amalgamated into healthcare in the district out of Doddington, which this kind of keeping the surgery afloat ensures that we retain that service in Chatteris. So as much as legally we can't, I think morally we should, but if we legally can't, then I'm disappointed with that, but we'll have to accept it.
Thank you. Councillor French.
Thank you. As a legal have said, but surely we can give them what they originally requested, the 18,000? It might not seem a big difference, but a few £100 does make a big difference to a small surgery.
I think I would agree. It's very sad that we can't give them more. It sounds to me like there's a breakdown in communication between the surgery and the NHS themselves. We all know where they are for monies. Is that possible? We can then now raise that back to the initial amount, Stephen?
Yes, I mean, just standing back from this, it's what's required by these extra 21 dwellings, what extra funds are required, and that's been assessed at 18,000. So you could certainly ask for that, or allocate that amount. Yes.
Thank you. We're still in debate. Councillor French?
Yeah, if I can formally request that we give them what they originally asked for.
Okay. Councillor Benny?
I would second that. But there's no point spending a lot of time on debating this. We can't turn it down. If we do, we'll lose the appeal. So we are where we are with it. If we can get those figures adjusted, that would be good. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, I think we need a proposal on this one.
I think at this point, as it is now, as we seem to have finished the debate, it's questions for officers, and I think we'll let David just tell you what he's just told me.
Thank you, through you, Chairman. So I think members have sort of set out their sort of disappointments in terms of the changes, but from the original 106 package, but sort of, I suppose, reconcile that disappointment with a sort of a pragmatic way forwards. It's certainly within the committee's gift to seek the full amount that the NHS were after, so the £18,000. Obviously, my maths isn't very good, so whatever £2,000 is off what the remainder that was due for the Education Authority. To actually facilitate that, though, whoever makes a proposal on the way forwards would need to include that as part of their proposal, so that it's there for the record and clear what the committee are therefore voting on.
Thank you, David. Any further questions to officers? No. Okay. So, do I have a proposal to go with officer's recommendation to approve planning permission with what David has already previously said. Councillor French. Do I have a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Benny. We will now go to the vote. If you support the proposal to go with officer's recommendation, please raise your hand.
Unanimous decision, Chairman.
Thank you. That proposal has been passed. I will now hand over to Hayley Parker-Haynes to present agenda item number 6, FYR 250957 PIP.
Thank you, Chairman. This application seeks permission in principle for up to 9 dwellings. This is the location plan and aerial photograph. The application site features an undeveloped backland site on the northern side of Westfield Road within the built-up area of Manny. The existing and indicative site plans, photographs of the site. The assessment is limited to the principal issues of location, use and amount, with detailed matters to be considered at the technical detail stage. Maney is identified as a growth village and the site is considered to be in a sustainable location with access to village services. Residential use is acceptable in principle and there is established precedent for backland development along Westfield Road. The proposed quantum represents a low-density form of development that is comparable with other permissions in the area. On balance, the proposal is considered acceptable and is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. We have one speaker on this application. I would like to ask Matthew Hall, the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Matthew Hall. I'm the agent. So we're pleased to note the officer's report. It recommends approval of this application. Maney's a growth village, as we've heard, with a shop, skate park, fishing lake, railway station and doctor's surgery. And as the officer's report confirms, this is in the built-up form of the village. There's no technical objections to this application. It's all in flood zone 1. Now, prior to submitting this application, we submitted a pre-app with the middle level, paid a fee with regards to surface water. We had positive written response come back that it could be taken into Darcy's Lode, that you see the blue waterway at the back there, providing it was attenuated. So yes, this is a PIP, but we thought ahead, put a pre-app in at the middle level. Good response, helps everybody. That's ideal. Westfields Road. Along Westfields Road, there have been numerous approvals in the past. Some of these are being built out already. These have been given approval by officers, members, and the planning inspectorate. The idea of residential development back towards Darcy Lode has therefore been accepted. There's numerous ones on this side of Westfields Road, and there's some obviously on the opposite side which are being dealt with at the moment. And this is all set out in the officer's report 10.9. There's numerous other approvals in this area of Maney. The officer's report sums this application up very well as a recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to invite members to put questions to Mr. Hall. If you would like to ask a question, please could you raise your hand? Well, Mr. Hall, you got away lightly there. I would now like to invite members to put questions to officers. Councillor French.
It's a PIP, so there's not really much point in going into discussion on this.
Was that a question for officers?
Well, you can answer yes or no. It's a PIP.
Through you, Chairman, it's a PIP, yes.
Okay, we move on. Thank you. I would now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of material planning considerations and ask officers any questions. Officers, any questions relevant to the application? If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Chairman. I think in view of the recent appeals decision, which enforced any kind of development in Westfield Road, it's got an approval on it. It doesn't need a lot of debate here today, Mr. Chairman. I think going to a vote on this one would be a good thing.
I have to say, coming from Maney, unfortunately, I've seen what the parish council has said, but we've been found against already. I think the precedent has been set, especially by the inspector. Whether we agree or disagreed with that decision is a different matter. However, I think this will, as you say, it will go to the inspector. So, yeah, I quite agree. I think we just move on. Everybody happy to move on? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, members. Does any officer have any points of clarification? No? Okay. So, do I have a proposer to go with officer's recommendation to approve planning permission? Councillor Mafferdon. Do I have a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Purser. We will now go to the vote. If you support the proposal to go with officer's recommendation, please raise your hand.
Unanimous to see, Chairman.
That application has been granted. Okay, I will now hand over to Hayley Parker Haynes to present agenda item number 7, FYR 26-0004, again a PIP.
Thank you, Chairman. This application seeks permission in principle for the development of up to 3 dwellings. This is the site location plan and aerial photograph. The site sits to the east of the A141 outside the developed footprint of Wimbledon.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to the fact that we've just had a power cut, we're now taking a 5 Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will now resume the meeting. I think because we were at very early stages, I would ask Hayley to restart from the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application seeks permission in principle for the development of up to 3 dwellings. This is the site location plan and aerial photograph. The site sits to the east of the A141 outside the developed footprint of Wimbledon. The proposal follows the refusal of a previous application for 7 dwellings and a withdrawn application for 5. This is the existing site plan, the proposed site plan, and the previously refused site plan. Photographs of the site and surrounding area. Under policies LP3 and LP12 of the Fenland local plan, the site is considered to be in an elsewhere location where new housing is only supported if it is demonstrably essential to a rural-based enterprise. No such justification has been provided. The development would therefore be in direct conflict with the settlement hierarchy and spatial strategy of the local plan. While the number of proposed dwellings has been reduced, the site remains visually and physically detached from the main settlement and would result in the domestication of open countryside, with associated harm to the rural character. The proposal would introduce residential use into a location affected by both noise from adjacent commercial uses and traffic on the A141, raising further concern about residential amenity. The revised scheme does not overcome the reasons for refusal of the previous application, and the site's location remains unsuitable for residential development in principle. Accordingly, this application is recommended for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. We have one speaker on this application, and I would like to ask Matthew Hall, the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. Mr. Hall, again, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. So I think, as the officer has said, since the last application was refused, October 2024, we've revised the proposal down to 3 dwellings on a different site area to ensure that there's material planning change. There's no technical objection to this application, and Highways raised no objection. When this application was heard at the previous committee in 2024, it was brought up that a lesser amount of dwellings might be acceptable, but the 7 we had shown was too much, and the application was refused. At present, there are caravans on site. One's been on site for a number of years with the applicant's family who live in there, paying council tax, and there's an additional caravan on the site for the applicant's mum, who's moved in there from Chatteris because I'm advised that she's got cancer. All of this site is in flood zone 1. Previous applications, the one that was withdrawn and the one that's refused, there are letters of objections from members of the public. There's no objections here from members of the public, none at all. So whether lessening the dwellings has got rid of the actual objections, I don't know, but there's no objections from members of the public. There is a dog grooming business and kennel business on site which would be removed from site if this was approved, and that has substantial vehicle movements each day, and the idea of 3 additional dwellings on site would be a lot less vehicle movements. So this site is the other side of the bypass, but so is all Eastwood End, which is only further north of this site. All of Eastwood End is the other side of the bypass, right next to the bypass, just like this site. No development was allowed there until, I think it was 2019. And development's been allowed there right up to the bypass, just like this site. And there is already a footpath link here, directly back to the church. And that's been there for well over 15 years to my knowledge. And I think it was also improved when the warehouse for Knowles Transport was approved. I think the footpath link was improved back then. The church, which is often the heart of the community, is within 90 metres of this site. And in our opinion, this is part of Wimbledon, just like Eastwood End, which is also on the opposite side of the bypass as a footpath link across the bypass. This one benefits from traffic lights, which I think was set in 2016, 2017. The other one at Eastwood End, there's no traffic lights there across that bypass. It's all in flood zone 1, like Eastwood End, and it's within 90 metres of the church. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to invite members to put questions to Mr. Hall. If you would like to ask a question, please could you raise your hand? Councillor Mafferton.
Thank you, Chair. Just a clarification question. So you said in the statement that the development will bring 3 additional dwellings to the site. Does that mean the kennel isn't completely being closed down or moving away?
So on site at present, there's a bungalow, and then there's a dog grooming business and dog kennels, all owned by the same person. The bungalow at the front would stay, and all the grooming and kennels would be lost, and 3 additional dwellings would be set. So it'd be a total of 4 on the site, yes.
Okay. Mr. Hall, I'll ask you a question. As you know, I drive past that every day, come to work that way. There's a mobile home that suddenly has appeared on site probably in the last 6 to 12 months. Do you happen to know whether that's got permission?
So there's a mobile home on edge or in the back right-hand corner that's been there, I think, about 10 years. That's the applicant's son who lives in there and pays council tax, family member. And there's another one, it's not on there, much closer to the bungalow, which is, I think, recent, as you say. That's the applicant's mum, who's moved in from Chatteris. Has it got planning permission? We've never applied for it. Would it need planning permission if it's in the residential curtilage and a family member? Officers could advise, but I've not seen a planning application for that, no.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Hall? No, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hall. I would now like to invite members to put questions to officers. Okay, I'll go. Oh, sorry. Councillor French.
Said it's a PIP, so we've got no real details, so I can't see any further discussion.
Okay, we will move on. Benny. No, Councillor Benny. I'll go at the end.
Yeah. When this came in for, I think it was 7 before, I supported it. Me and Councillor Marks disagreed on this one. I would be in support of this today.
Sorry, is this a question for officers?
Sorry, I thought we'd gone into debate.
No. Oh, it's just for officers.
In that case, then, no. Easy one for you.
Okay, so thank you. I'd now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of the material planning considerations and ask officers any questions relevant to the application. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Shall we let Councillor Benny start?
Thank you, Chairman. When this, as I said before, when this came before us, I would have supported this as 7. The committee gave a steer on this when we were here, and even yourself, Mr. Councillor Marks, you said 3 or 4 you could possibly support on this one. It's up to you what you do. But the committee gave a steer on that, and I feel that the applicant has gone away and he's taken on board what we said. And we always try and steer people in the right direction, and to not support something when we've given them a steer, I think is morally wrong. Looking at the application, this is part of Eastwood End. We have passed houses along the bypass at the other end of Eastwood End. Savage Developments have done loads of development there, which we've supported as a committee against officers' decision, and Redheads, they had applications down at the other end of Eastwood End. We've supported those. And this is just the other end. Directly opposite this, we had Knowles's Transport. Now that is going to put far more traffic on this junction than ever 3 bungalows are going to do. We've got the big dog grooming businesses there. My stepdaughter used to take her dog there, and putting 3 dwellings on there is going to make this a safer junction. It's going to reduce the amount of traffic on there. It's going to make it worse. It's going to make it safer. If we're going to take a view that this junction is dangerous, then that really cuts off any development at Station Road end of Maney, because that will put more traffic on there. And we're not going to do that. Mainly's a growth village. That will add traffic to it. 3 bungalows will not add a significant amount of traffic to this. It will reduce it. We talk about being consistent. We consistently have passed applications, a lot of them against offers of recommendation, which I fully support the applications that we put in before, that have come before us before, and they've been voted on by the committee, and they've all been approved. Now, this one's come today for just 3 dwellings. And I really feel that this application is better connected to Wimbledon than the other end of Eastwood, the other end at Eastwood End, where you join onto the bypass. It's got a crossing, which is already there. The connectivity to the village is infinitely better than it was the other end of the village, at the other end of Eastwood End. And the only reason is LP3 and LP12. Well, LP3 is building in the open countryside. It is surrounded by buildings. That big building to the north of the site is Knowles' Transport, which we unanimously agreed to approve. Now that will put far more traffic on this junction than ever 3 dwellings will. This is going to reduce it. I really see that, to be consistent, that this application, to me, I would fully support this. This isn't open countryside. We've got development all along the A141. And I dare say Councillor Marks is going to come back with a difference of opinion. But look what we've done before. We have approved these applications all the way along here. What is so special about this one? There's no objections from highways. There's no objections from residents of Wimbledon, which is very unusual because they seem to find everything that you can think of if there's a complaint coming. But there's none. There's nothing to complain about with this. I just think this is a good, solid application, as many others are. I'm sure we'll hear another side to that one, Mr. Marks.
Thank you, Councillor Benny. Councillor Mafton.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to echo what Councillor Benny said. I think if we steer the applicants towards making changes in the application, and then it's brought back to us, we should not go back on our word and then say, oh, we've already given them an indication of what we will support. They've gone away, changed it, and brought it back. It's only fair that we be consistent and support the application. Now, also about what access to the site. If you have a dog kennel, you don't get regular people using it. It's different people all the time who do not know the traffic of the area. But if you have three bungalows, residential bungalows, they're going to be people who live there. They're going to be accustomed to the junction and be able to use it safely. So if we're talking about safety, I think having 3 bungalows there is safer than having a dog kennel there. So I will also be supporting the application. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor French.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I didn't agree with Councillor Benny at the last application. I thought 7 dwellings were far too many, but as both Sid and Ian have said, we did give an indication. I don't like this application at all, especially when mobile homes and caravans keep appearing. And whether this is approved or not, I think the additional mobile home that has appeared recently needs to be looked at, because if somebody's living, my concern is the road, but highways I've not objected. It's a horrible corner. I would just be interested to see how, if they do get planning permission, how it actually work. Are the kennels all going to be removed, mobiles moved before they put the application in? I don't like the application, but I will agree with Councillor Benny for once.
Thank you. Shall I have a go? Okay, so I don't like this application at all. Every morning I sit at that junction, I watch what happens there. The problem you have at that junction especially is when people are turning in off the A141 and turning into site, and it will be the same whether there's people living there or whether it's a dog grooming centre. You back the A141 up. Yes, we have given, and I agree, we gave across the road planning permission, which is a bit further along for the lorry yard, but the lorries are at least 150 to 200 metres further down the road and don't hold up the 141. Morning after morning I sit there and people pull across those gates, and that then brings that traffic to a stop. Regarding highways, we had the highways officer here, as I remember the last time, And I actually asked the highways officer, and he said no, but he said it was a desktop survey at the time. And the other thing about it was, we've seen what a desktop survey did, I think it was last meeting in Chatteris, where they wanted to bring traffic out into a 60-mile-an-hour road. So we know desktop surveys to a certain degree, and it was also done during COVID. So I question the desktop survey as well. The application, where it is, it's in the middle of an industrial area. Next door to it, you've got fans, you've got everything running on the potato store, and across the road, as we've already said, you have warehousing, which is Knowles's warehousing. I just think this is not a good application, I think for a number of reasons, those being sort of like the main ones. And the other thing about it is, and as Councillor Benny has said, Councillor Matheson as well, you know, and I heard the word morally, but I also heard, coming from the agent, might. And I think, still in hindsight and going forward, I still don't think it's a good application. So therefore, I believe officers have got this right on this occasion, and I will go with officers' recommendation. Anybody further? Councillor Benny.
Yeah. Looking at highways, we did have the highways officer here, and as we were having a little spar about whether we approve it or not, you said there was accidents there, and I asked him, are there any accidents? He looked on his computer and said no. And the difference between the A142 at Chatteris is that comes out on a 50-mile-an-hour road. This is a 50-mile-an-hour road, but it is on a junction with traffic lights. So there is not traffic moving at 50 miles an hour there because they've already slowed down for the junction, or the lights will be on red where they won't come out. This is not dangerous. And it's being used. And also, by passing this, you reduce the amount of traffic that is going to be using that, and therefore you're making it safer by passing it. You may not agree with me, but it doesn't mean you're right, Mr. Marks. I just look at this. I think that we've passed so much at the other end. I mean, Savage Developments have had a lot of luck at the other end of Eastwood End, but look what they've built with it. They have built some fantastic houses at the other end. And who's to say this is not the other end? This isn't in the middle of Bile Fen. It isn't in the middle of Tick Fen. This is 90 metres from the church, the centre, the heart of the community. How can we turn this down? This is crying out for development. And it's going to improve road safety. I cannot see where the argument against this is solid and valid.
Thank you, Councillor Benny. If I can come back on that, I've actually seen accidents there. I've seen a number of accidents there. I've also seen when the ambulance has to come through there, the traffic stacking up actually on that junction, trying to let stuff through. So, you know, I'm sorry, I do use this every day. I know what you're saying. You're saying the highways hadn't got that information. But as Councillor French has previously said, not all, unless they're a death or a very serious accident, accidents are recorded. And so, I'm sorry, I still stand by what I said previously. And it was the word might.
Thank you. Yes, as you know, I used to be a Cambridge County Councillor, and I used to get very frustrated when I wanted some information on RTCs, etc. And the information that county hold is only fatalities, not serious accidents, which really is appalling in this. And that's why the county highway officer could not answer the question, because there had not been any fatalities, but there certainly has been plenty of RTCs there.
Thank you. Any further debate? No. Okay, thank you, members. Does any officer have any points of clarification? Hayley.
Thank you, Chairman. So a lot of the discussion was around the amount of units proposed and consistency in decision making. If I could just draw your attention to the previous reason for refusal, which is in 9.1 of your report. The application site constitutes an area of land located outside the developed footprint of Wimbledon. The development proposal will be in an elsewhere location, contrary to policies LP3 and LP12 of the Fenland Local Plan. As such, any residential development on this site will be contrary to the above policy considerations, and thus, in terms of location and use, the planning in principle application fails. So whilst the red line has been amended as part of this application, obviously the overall location of the site remains unchanged. I just wanted to provide clarity there with our previous reason for refusal and consistency.
Councillor Benny.
Yeah. but also on Eastwood End, on the outskirts of Eastwood End, where it backs further that way, we had an application next to Billy King's land that was refused, and Florrie Newells, who used to be a councillor here, I think her daughter lived there, and there was an appeal decision that ruled that that was part of Wilmington. That was not part of the open countryside, and that is partly why all of this development has opened up, because there was an appeal decision down there, which is much further out of Wilmington than this is. Councillor Benny, I'll bring in David at this point.
Thank you, through you, Chairman. We've had several references to Eastwood End. This application site isn't at Eastwood End. This application site is 700 metres south of Eastwood End. It's a different location. Any site-specific issues or issues that were identified in the appeal on Eastwood End are not relevant to this site. This is a different site, and I think the citing of examples of development that have taken place on Eastwood End, decisions that the committee may or may not have taken on Eastwood End, are not particularly relevant to this application, which needs to be determined on its own particular merits, Chairman.
Thank you, David. Councillor Benny. The appeal decision that was made on Billy King's land was that Eastwood End was part of Wilmington. David?
Through you, Chairman, I don't particularly want to get into because we could probably do it all afternoon. It's in Eastwood End, it's not in Eastwood End. Ultimately, my view is that this isn't Eastwood End, and ultimately any decisions that were taken within what is identifiably Eastwood End are not of relevance to this particular site, and I would advise members to exercise caution in using those as some sort of precedent for dealing with this application.
Councillor French.
Thank you, David, for clarifying that. That was my impression. It's not Eastwood End. Eastwood End is further up the road. I'm not going to support this application, and I think for this committee for future, we must not give applicants an indication that if there's a lesser number that they will get planning permission, because that certainly was not said. It's a nasty little corner. Yeah, dogs, cars, and whatever going in to get the dogs and cats or whatever done. It will reduce it by having, but it's still a nasty little corner, and I don't like the application, and I wouldn't support it.
Thank you. Any further questions to officers? Okay. So, do I have a proposer to go with officer's recommendation to refuse planning permission? Councillor French. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gerstner. We will now go to the vote. If you support the proposal to go with officer's recommendation, please raise your hand.
3 votes, Chairman.
Okay. Oh dear. If you're against the proposal to go with officer's recommendation, please raise your hand.
3 votes, Chairman.
Great. I think Stephen, our legal officer is correct. I have to be consistent, and consistency is, I'm sorry, I vote against this proposal and go with officer's recommendation. Okay.
The application is refused, Chairman.
That's correct. The application is refused. I will now hand over to Danielle Brooke. Sorry, we're just going to have a swap of chairs. I will now hand over to Danielle Brooke, Senior Development Officer, to present Agenda Item 8, FYR 25-0907F.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda Item 8 seeks permission for the change of use of an agricultural land to a dog exercise area with associated parking, fencing and a modest field shelter at Fen Road, Newton in the Isle. It's before members today owing to the Parish Council comments contrary to officer recommendations. The The application site is edited in red on the location plan and aerial photos as shown. It comprises 1.5 hectares of agricultural land situated to the north of Fen Road in Newton. The site is currently open land, bounded to the east and south by drainage ditches. Fen Road itself is characterised to the east with a number of residential dwellings set around 80 metres from the site that lead into the built form of Newton in the Isles further east. Opposite the site, a residential dwelling known as Sorrento is affiliated with an agricultural commercial property known as the Nursery, which includes a number of agricultural buildings and a hard-standing yard area. To the west, development is significantly more sporadic with open countryside and agricultural dwellings. The site is located in flood zone 3. The proposed site plan, shelter details and fencing are shown. The scheme includes installation of a permanent 1.8 metre and 1.2 metre high secure fencing areas, erection of a 4 metre by 3 metre field shelter, and formation of car parking area facilitated by the creation of an upgraded vehicular access. Site photos are shown. Photo 1 is looking north across the existing site. Photo 2 is looking east along Fen Road, and you can make out the built form of the village in the background, along with the access to the nursery opposite. Photo 3 is looking west along Fen Road. You can just see the corner of the dwelling known as Sorrento that sits opposite the site to the left of the photo. And Photo 4 is the existing agricultural nursery that is located opposite the site. So the Parish Council comments received directly compared the current application to a previously refused application at Ferry Farm for a similar development, 230403F. Noting that they noted the similarity of the schemes on the grounds of the loss of agricultural land, character impact and highway safety. At the time of consideration of 23043, the Ferry Farm site was observed to be in active agricultural use, as can be seen from the top photo. Contrastingly, on recent inspection, it appears that the current application site at Fen Road is not in active agricultural production. So accordingly, whilst the classification of the land and general proposal is the same in both cases, there is clear evidence of agricultural use at the Ferry Lane site, which is not apparent at the current site, and thus the weight attributed to the loss of agricultural land is significantly reduced. Furthermore, the geometry of the Ferry Lane proposal was such that it encompassed a significantly wide area relative to the roadside, by which the intended enclosure of the site would appear much more prominent and incongruous within the open landscape. Whilst it is accepted there will be some visible impact from the enclosure of the current site, the geometry of the application site is longer than it is wide, and therefore will result in comparatively less impactful fence line when viewed from the highway. Obviously, it's a matter of perspective. When you're looking from the highway out to the site, it will appear narrower as it goes away from you. The Parish Council comments regarding the unsuitability of Fen Road were also received. While some comparisons can be drawn, the most notable contrast in the Ferry Lane application was that it was recommended for refusal by the Highways Authority on the basis of unresolved matters such as inappropriate parking, turning, visibility and restricted widths. That is not the case in this current application. Highways have no objection here. Whilst the Parish Council concerns are therefore noted, each application must be considered on its own merits, and given the above, it's considered the contrasting circumstances between the two sites are that they cannot be directly compared. So to conclude, the application seeks permission for the change of use of agricultural land to a dog exercise area, and the development is considered acceptable in principle within this elsewhere location under policy LP3. The proposal would reduce in some loss of BMV agricultural land, but this weighs against the development. However, because the land appears unused and unmanaged, resulting in the weight of harm that can be attributed to this is minimised. The development would introduce fencing, a small field shelter and parking, which obviously is incongruous with the overall landscape. However, owing to its modest scale and limited visibility, there is, on balance, it's acceptable in accordance with LP16. Separation distances to nearby dwellings and no objections raised from environmental health and other matters. Apologies, I'm getting all caught up here for some reason. The site essentially is acceptable with respect to residential amenity and accords with the relevant policies. There are no issues with highways. It is a flood-compatible water use and therefore is no impact in respect of flood risk. There is no ecological harm, and the harms are outweighed by the approval in this case, and therefore it's recommended for approval.
Thank you, Danielle. We have one written representation and one speaker on this application. Firstly, could I ask that Member Services read the written representation from a Mr. Horspool, an objector to this application? Joe.
Thank you, Chairman. Dear members, sorry I'm not available today to be at the Planning Committee meeting personally to address the points. Please refer to the members' agenda pack. At 10.2, outdoor recreation, the application is for a dog exercise park. 200 metres to the west of the park is Black Dyke, and the entry to at least 6 miles of public footpaths and bridleways providing exercise for both humans and their dogs. Most local people already know of these free exercise routes, and lots of people use them daily. From conversations with locals while out walking, all will continue to use the local free open spaces. 10.7 and 11.2. Actively farmed with regard to the Grade 1 farmland. This modified grassland forms part of the government SPI payment scheme. A farm may put aside a percentage of total land down to grassland and can claim a payment for doing so. There are also rules on cutting and maintaining, so although it may not look like it is being farmed, it provides a high biodiversity net gain that would be lost by converting this Grade 1 farmland. The original application also stated that the exercise park was being built on the existing stubble land. This is incorrect. It is actually onto the grassland. This helped with showing an increase in net gain calculation instead of a negative result of biodiversity net gain by the agent. This could be misleading information. 10.14 and 11.3, visual impact. It would be hard not to put this application in a position with any more visual impact. The applicant has a large area of modified grassland, and some of that area has hedgerows and trees that would have been more suited to this project, to also provide screening and shelter, as well as better road access. This was also noted by the Parish Council. Policy LP 15 also states safe and convenient access. The single track lane has many dog walkers and children families out on push bikes. This is a national speed limit road with no passing places. Increased traffic of up to 6 cars per session would be a risk, as these visitors will probably be from outside the village and not be familiar with the area. 10.35, biodiversity gain. The agent may not have visited the site with the application as mentioned earlier. This is not crop stubble land and has not been so for a few years, so this report may be inaccurate. LP 16. Although loss of views is not part of planning, loss of privacy is. The entry to the development is 68 metres from Sorrento to the southwest, not 83 metres. But the southwest corner of the development is less than 20 metres from Sorrento, with both sitting room windows facing northeast look directly over the car park. If the development is passed, please could you add a clause at the southwest corner 20 metres and southern edge to the entry gate be enclosed by a 2.4 metre high solid wood panel fence. As the field is low compared to road height, this would not be substantial and preserve privacy. Other areas of note. The farmed fields to the eastern edge 5 metres and the closest to the west 50 metres. The oak trees to the east have a large rookery and pigeon population. When crops are first planted, both fields have had bird scarers to keep pigeons and rooks off the newly emerging crops. These sound like 2 shotgun blasts every 30 minutes, 2 seconds apart. With the many complaints about noise scaring dogs, this may also cause concern. This is first and foremost farming. The applicant also uses bird scarer bangers to the fields to the northwest, where up until last week 7 scarers were set up protecting a crop, so would be aware about the problems of this area in this regard and should be of note. These types of projects are normally restricted to Grade 3 agricultural land along with solar projects. This keeps Grades 1 and 2 land in agriculture set out in the NPPF and in Policy LP 12. I do not think that these have been achieved, and together with the inaccurate biodiversity report, these need to be taken into consideration. As in the conditions of approval, a biodiversity net gain of 10% open farmland would be hard to achieve without the planting of a lot of hedgerows and trees. The loss of wild modified grassland for paddock grass, car parking and cars would be a considerable loss for biodiversity net gain to start with. If these must be maintained for 30 years, then returning the land to farmland, if the project fails, would take 30 years and not overnight. The Planning Committee have to decide if the development is sustainable and does in fact meet the National Planning Policy Framework. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I would now like to ask Lewis Smith, the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Lewis Smith and I'm the agent for the applicant. Following the COVID pandemic, there's been a significant rise in the number of dog paddocks established around the country, where both private individuals and professional dog walkers can exercise their dogs safely. My client established his first such paddock on the outskirts of Long Sutton, and this has now operated successfully since July 2023. Bookings for the proposed paddock will be made online, and clients will be given a code for the gate at the entrance into the site to then use the facility for the prepaid period. The site will be open every day of the year and subject to booking in advance. The proposed opening hours will be 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week, but this will be limited by daylight hours as no lighting is proposed. Clients will be able to hire the field for 50-minute time slots with 10-minute buffer in between each slot to allow a changeover. And there will be up to 6 dogs allowed on site during any one session. Experience of other similar facilities shows that the majority of clients have 1 to 2 dogs per session, but a maximum of 6 dogs will cater for professional dog walkers and people who wish to meet up. I would draw members' attention to proposed conditions 8 and 9 on page 120 of the report, which, amongst other things, limits both the operating hours and the number of dogs on site at any one time. A car park for clients' vehicles will be provided, together with turning space to allow vehicles to enter and leave the site in forward gear. On arrival, clients will be required to secure the outer gate in a closed position before removing their dogs from the vehicle. On departure, clients will again be required to secure their dogs in the vehicles before opening the gates to depart. They will then be required to ensure the gate is then closed to prevent unauthorised access. A small wooden shed will provide shelter for clients during periods of inclement weather. The operation of the site is strictly controlled, and clients will effectively sign up to the management plan and terms and conditions when booking is made. A dedicated website and Facebook page will be set up whereby bookings can be made and any comments and complaints can be aired. Clients will be required to clean up after their dogs and deposit any waste in bins that will be provided on site, which will then be emptied regularly by the management team. An abbreviated reminder of noise management and consideration of neighbours is highlighted online at the time when a booking is made, and also on the customer's booking receipt email, and a third time on the customer's booking reminder email, which is received 2 hours before their allotted time slot. Anyone who does not abide by the rules and regulations of the facility will not be allowed to book future sessions, and it is in the applicant's own interest to ensure that the site is properly managed and operated, otherwise customers will simply go elsewhere. The proposal represents a form of rural diversification, which is an appropriate use in the open countryside. The importance of access to recreational open space is recognised as being an important factor, contributing to the mental health and well-being of people involved. There is little impact arising from the proposal, which will be well managed, much like the applicant's other similar facility on the edge of Long Sutton. Our application has been the subject of positive pre-application advice with your officers, and we are grateful for their assistance in shaping the proposal. We therefore hope that members will be able to support the officers' recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I would now like to invite members to put questions to Mr. Smith. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. Councillor Benny.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councillor.
Is this Grade 1 agricultural land that we're putting this on?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Lufton. Oh, sorry. Councillor Gerstner.
Thank you. Just can you confirm that there'll be somebody on site to manage it from opening to closing throughout the whole time?
No, it's bookings are made online and the site operates remotely. So you have you're given a combination code to punch in to allow yourself to come in and out of the site. And that's how every dog paddock that we've certainly dealt with and that I've visited and am aware of operate. None of them are actually manned.
Okay, I understand that. So the safety of people there at the time, you will have no CCTV there or anything like that for any sort of health and safety or accidents with either the animals or the people that are taking their dogs?
That's correct, Councillor, but that's no different to taking your dog for a walk down the nearest towpath or across a field.
Thank you. Very quickly, any provisions for potential noise complaints? How will this be dealt with?
On my client's first site in Long Sutton, he operates a very active Facebook page and is keen to engage with the local community. So if there are any complaints, and with the widespread use of social media, those complaints would be soon heard, and my client reacts to them accordingly. So if there are any teething issues, and local residents can obviously use Facebook or know someone who can, then those can be looked into. And if there are repeated infringements of the rules and regulations, then those people won't be invited back. And it's in my client's interest to ensure that the site operates. Otherwise, as I said, people just vote and go elsewhere.
Councillor French.
Thank you. You said that nobody is going to be on site and these dog owners will pick up their own mess. If they don't pick up their own mess, are you going to prove who was responsible if nobody's on site?
There are two ways. If the person who has left the dog mess, when the management team to come in and look at the bins to clean up the dog mess, if there's stuff that's lying around, then they will obviously have that day's number of bookings to confer with. But it's more likely that the next people into the dog park, if they see that dog mess or any other mess for that matter has been left behind, they will then report it to the management team. The management team will interrogate the booking system and find out who was there beforehand. It's not foolproof, but it has worked successfully on my clients' other site.
Yes, thanks, Jim. I'm just wondering, especially there's been a lot of publicity about dogs. I'm a dog lover myself and got them about, but are there times and restrictions on the types of dogs that are actually going to be let out there? I mean, they'll say that it's not normally the dogs, it's the owners that are actually the problem. And sometimes, if, say, for argument's sake, if it's not a manned site and there are problems between dogs, how would that actually be taken care of?
Invariably, the dogs on site belong to one owner. We're able to interrogate the booking system to see what the average number of dogs are that use the site, and they tend to be, as is in the report, between 1 and 2 dogs per person. But invariably, they are owners that either know each other and their dogs know each other. So we don't get people arriving with dogs that are effectively strangers to each other, where that could cause an issue. So that's why the booking system is a 50-minute time slot with a 10-minute changeover. So dogs shouldn't meet each other, which reduces the likelihood of barking. and equally you won't get dogs and possibly owners setting to and falling out with each other. So I can only speak from experience that the way these dog parks operate is virtually universally the same, and it tends to work quite well.
Councillor Gerstner.
Thank you. It's agricultural land that is now being left as pasture land. Whatever. Do you know when this land was last used for agricultural purposes?
I don't, Councillor, I'm afraid. I can only say that on the day of the inspection, it wasn't used for agricultural land. But I would make the point that whilst it is Grade 1 agricultural land, it still will be Grade 1 agricultural land. There's no land going.
It could, in the future, be turned back into agricultural land. Then can we confirm that if needed be?
Quite easily. My client is a farmer, farms land around it. So in the event that either the venture is unsuccessful or he wishes to return it to farming, then that is easily achieved. We've got a little bit of fencing, a very small car park. Obviously, we wouldn't be taking up the landscape and the biodiversity, but yes, it's easily reversible. The land will still be Grade 1 agricultural land.
Thank you. I mean, most dog owners are fairly responsible. I don't own a dog myself, but I know a lot of people that do. Okay, and they like exercise, and dogs like exercise, and I fully support that. I see that Newton in the Isle has a population of around 750 to 800 people, so there's probably some sort of footfall there for a need. Okay, so I accept that. It's just that sometimes I'm a little bit concerned about taking away agricultural land and if it can be easily turned back, then that's...
Is this a question, or would that be better for debate? Thank you. Any further questions, Mr. Smith? No? Thank you. I would now like to invite members to put questions to officers. If you would like to do so, please raise your hand. Councillor French.
Thank you. I do note that at 2.3 it is in flood zone 3, so I'm not quite sure whether the field's going to get flooded and dogs will actually end up all muddy, etc., etc. I'm really concerned about the time up to 10 o'clock at night in summer. Is that something that officers could restrict down?
I'm certain that conversations could be had, although it is obviously only during the daylight hours. I appreciate in the summertime they will likely be up to 10 o'clock at night. There has been no objection from environmental health on that basis, and obviously if there are any concerns with environmental health impacts, there is separate legislation that can deal with that if necessary.
Any further questions for officers? No? Okay. Thank you. I would now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of the material planning considerations and ask officers any questions relevant to the application. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I don't have any objection to dogs. I used to have one myself, quite like them. But we live in an agricultural area, and this is Grade 1 agricultural land. And although it's not being taken out of being agricultural land, it is taken out of food production. If you read the Daily Telegraph, you'll find that there is big talk at the moment about food security in this country, especially with the price of fertilisers going up, even saying people should be growing vegetables in their own back garden to provide this. To take this out for dog walking, if he's a farmer, he should stick to what farmers do. Farmers grow crops. I know they have to diversify, but every farmer has some rubbish bit of land that nothing ever grows on for whatever reason, and that would be much better use than this piece here, I feel. And when myself and Councillor French visited there yesterday, I would have said, "Add wheat in it, wouldn't you?" Because it's had something growing in it. It wasn't just wild grass. There's something that's being used. We're taking land out of food production now. That to me, we're an agricultural area. We made big play of the solar farm when we about taking land out of food production. I know it's on a much smaller scale. It's not, half the size of Wales, which that one was. But it's nevertheless, look at it. It's agricultural land. What do you want to stick a dog walking thing there for? There would be better land that would be suited for this. And it's planning committee. We're looking at land usage, and I don't think this is good use of land.
Yeah, I do agree with Councillor Benny. There's certainly other places that can be used with. I don't like the 10 o'clock at night. I know it's only when it is light, but you know, that could be several months. And dog barking does get on people's nerves. Okay, there's only going to be 6 at a time, but you get, you know, a couple of dogs once they start. I mean, I've got a couple of dogs. I don't like them barking to upset my neighbours, and I certainly would not want a dog park like this next to me. I've got enough problems on the A141 without dog barking. My biggest concern is the fact of this time, and the gentleman did say about the muck being picked up. Most dog owners are responsible, but you do, I mean, we have it all over the district, dog filing, etc. Sorry, I will not be supporting this application.
Councillor Muffington.
Thank you, Chair. I will not be supporting this based purely on the fact that it is Grade 1 agricultural land. I do accept that whoever is using the facility at a given time will be responsible for their dogs and picking up their dogs, and that there is no risk of dogs fighting each other because they're likely going to know each other before they go there. It is booked on a 50-hour time slot, and then there's 10 minutes in between. I accept all that. I accept the operational arrangements that have been set up, but just on the fact that it is Grade 1 agricultural land, I will not be supporting. Thank you.
Councillor Purser.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I'm taking. I'm still very open-minded on this at the moment, I have to say. But the point I was actually going to make was, I say about it should all be stopped by 10 o'clock and nobody has dogs out after that sort of time. I recently had some new neighbours in my road a little while ago, and there were, shall we say, some possible potential burglaries in the area which were stopped. But the neighbour, I came home one night and the neighbour was taking his dogs out at some unearthly sort of times, and he said, well, I work all different hours, and I actually started taking the dogs out at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I have to say that when they even had a little bit of growling about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, it put people off that shouldn't basically been out there. So I'm not too sure that really comes into it as such like that. Really, I wasn't objecting to barking like that. I basically felt that it was a put off for other people like that. So I don't think the 10 o'clock thing really comes into it as far as I'm concerned. I'm still debating my own brain and open-minded about the rest of it though. Thank you.
Councillor, go on.
Listen, I'm quite happy if the land can be put back to agricultural land, as Councillor Benny said. We live in an agricultural area, agricultural resilience. We're living in a very challenging time at the moment. Eh? I like dogs. I don't have one myself. I've got 2 tortoises, thank you. But anyway, that's fine. But and I understand. I belong to one of my groups is a dog walking group. They've got 200 members in Whittlesea with what they call good dog walkers. So I'm very supportive of it. The hours of operation, we should say, if it can be limited and the gate is access through limited times. I've just got this uncanny feeling. I can't get the grips with losing that land. I know it can be put back. It's not farmed at the moment, but I'm just a little bit uncomfortable with it. Thank you.
Okay. I went and had a look. It's in the middle of downtown nowhere. We've got one in Maney. We also passed one the other day in Chatteris as well. One thing I would say, having got grandchildren, is there's no toilet facilities and it's in the middle of downtown nowhere, which is another concern. I agree with the agricultural land. Agricultural land, though, can be returned, but it does seem a long way away. And environmentally, we're all being told that we should be environmentally friendly. We're going to get in the car to take the dog there to go for a walk. Whereas, with Chatteris, you can walk to it. And in Maney, you can walk to it. I don't think this is the case there, that where the majority of people will be using it. They will have to go by vehicle. So I think on this occasion, I err on the side of I don't think I will be supporting this. Any further debate? Okay. Thank you, members. Does any officers have any points of clarification? David's looking.
I've got a sense of perhaps where this application is heading. I think it would be probably useful for members, if they are looking to refuse the application, to perhaps crystallise what those reasons are, and then I think advice from myself or Stephen on the veracity of those is probably the better way to go, rather than trying to preempt what members may come up with.
Okay. So, I guess at this point we could do one of two things. We could either go back in debate and come up with a reasoning, if we are going to turn it down, for a reason for turning it down, or alternatively we can go to a vote. But at that point, going to the vote, we're still going to have to come up with reasons. Which would you prefer to do? We'll go back into debate. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, thank you. Looking for reasons. I'm sure David will guide me on this one. But I would say it's the reduction. It's the loss of agricultural land. It seems a long way from the village. If you want to, I know you can drive, but I don't think that's particularly environmentally friendly. To take your dog for a walk, the idea is you walk it. You don't. It's not a passenger in a car. In terms of the hours, the chap who lives opposite, and he's got his business there. I don't see why there shouldn't be a business the other side. But equally, it's the hours. I do think 10 o'clock that maybe could be negotiated. But the main thing is taking agricultural land out of use. We are an agricultural area, and we have said with the solar farms, we do not want. We are an agricultural area. If this was a piece of scrubland and every farmer has a bit of land, it can never grow anything on it. Ground just doesn't work. To me, when I was there the other day, this had crops on it, and that's what we should be concentrating on, and farmers should be concentrating on the same. So that would be my main reason for turning this down.
Okay, I think also facilities around it. It is in the middle of nowhere. If you've got small children, if you've got adults, whatever, a toilet would have been, even a chemical toilet or whatever, which I think is something, again, environmentally we need to consider. Councillor Purser.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Something else that actually just came to my mind. The part that I actually brought up originally about was it going to be, whether it be people there, if dogs do sometimes attack each other or humans like that. And I haven't actually seen on any first aid facilities there either, just in case anything like that. It's terrible does actually happen that. So that's kind of, sort of turned my mind a little bit really. Say no losing no first aid is possibly an essential thing for this sort of site really. Thank you.
So would we class it as amenities? Stephen?
Thank you, Chair. I think if members wanted to refuse that, the loss of best and most versatile land is clearly a relevant reason and a remote location. I think it's the lack of toilet facilities, but then Council's environmental officer hasn't objected to this application, so that might be less of a convincing reason.
Councillor Benny.
I mean, the main reason is the loss of agricultural land. We are an agricultural area, and I just think that is the main reason for turning this down. I mean, whenever we build anything, it'll affect the street scene. Well, this is going to affect the street scene, country lane scene, however you want to look at it. Whatever you build affects the environment that you're working in. And now whether that's a skyscraper in London or whether that's a dog pen in Newton, it does affect the area. And that is agricultural area. It could be put back to agricultural use. But if that's out of production for several years, the arbor will come along and say that the growing rate of that land it will take years to pull that land back into grade 1 agricultural use with fertilisers and everything else. I just don't think it's the right place. And the grade 1 agricultural use is the loss of land. We should not be taking that out, not in my opinion. And also, it will affect the street scene. If you live in Newton and you walk down that road, that's what you see. It changes things. A fence that you can see through, the one at Welliware is at Chatteris. That's had a fence come up, and once it's up, it's there. but that's got things around it. This is right in the middle of the countryside. To put that a box, fence an area off in the middle of a field, which is more or less what that is. I just think the environment for this and the siting of it is wrong.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Gerstner.
Thank you. Well, Parish Council object on the grounds of lost of agricultural land. I know it's not that materialistic, but they know better. They live there. That's their area. And they also objected or made about the traffic and the highway. So I have to take that into consideration. Thank you.
I think traffic is also a concern. David.
Through you, Chairman, I think just to, without wishing to contradict you, ultimately the views of the Parish Council are not a material planning consideration, and I would advise members to not give weight to those comments when making a decision. I think in terms of highway issue, some comments around sort of the visual impact. Yes, there will be a slight change to the character and appearance of the site, given that there will be a fence going round. Ultimately, a fence could be erected around the site to sort of safeguard it as agricultural land, potentially. And clearly, we're not looking here at developing the site out as a residential site, which will have a significant and clear change to the character of the area. However, obviously it's members' decision as to what reasons for refusal you want to go with, but I would again advise some caution on some of those issues that have been flagged up.
Thank you, David. Councillor French.
Thank you. Well, I'm quite surprised to hear what David has just said, that the parish, or it'll go for town councils as well, is not a material planning consideration. Bearing in mind, towns and parishes have got their own local plan. They know what's going on. They are statutory consultees. And the message now goes out to parish and town councillors. They won't take their objections into consideration. I think you're absolutely wasting your time even consulting in the first place.
Sorry,
David.
I'm sorry, Chairman. I do really need to come back on that point. Well, clearly we consult town and parish councils, and we listen to what they say, and any issues that they raise, we seek to address. That does not mean that their comments are material when determining a planning application, and that the planning committee gives weight to that, which was the inference from what Councillor Gerstner was saying, and that was the point I was making. Was it's for the committee to exercise its own judgment in terms of making a decision on this application or on any planning application, and not to effectively kind of parrot the view of the town council or the parish council. And that is an established point in case law, essentially.
Councillor French.
If I can, I'm just looking at what the parish councils did say. It's loss of agricultural land. Well, surely that is a material consideration, and that's the thought of the parish council.
Would you like to respond, David? No. Okay. Councillor Benny.
Question for David. Are you looking for one solid reason, or are you looking for a solid reason with a bit of filling around it?
Through you, Chairman, given that the officer recommendation is to grant the application, we'd be looking for you to resolve to approve it in line with the recommendation. It's clearly the committee's decision as to what you feel are substantive reasons for refusal potentially, and what your concerns are, and whether that's one reason for refusal or two reasons for refusal. Is reflective of the issues that as you see them, basically.
And when Matthew Lee, head planning's here, he has given us, he has said one solid reason is better than lots of little fluffy reasons. And he usually gives us a little bit of guidance. And in his absence today, we are looking to you for an answer.
Through you, Chairman, ultimately, it's what are the issues that are concerning members, and what do you want to put into your reason for refusal? I completely concur with the advice that is given by Mr. Lee, that one sound reason for refusal beats, sort of 3 or 4 rather spurious ones. But ultimately, it's not for me to advise the committee, well, you should only refuse it on one ground, if ultimately there are a couple of issues which are vexing the committee, essentially.
Thank you. I think we need to go with one solid reason. Okay, you would do. So, I mean, with Stephen, depending on what the solid reasons are, but I mean, obviously, lack of or loss of agricultural land. And your second solid reason?
Change to the environment and not the environment, to the street scene, if you like. Putting a fence up in the middle of a field, you don't see them anywhere. You could put them up anywhere in agricultural land, but you don't see it. It's out of character of the local area. I'm happy to reduce it down to 1. If it comes down to me to put the proposal forward to stick to 1, I'll take Stephen's advice.
Thank you, Chairman. My view is that if this goes to appeal, the second matter you mentioned about the street scene, whatever you call it, is fairly weak, I think. And in my view, the strongest argument is a loss of the best versatile land, which is clearly can be evidenced if you have an appeal, and I can't really argue with that, except subject to the point that it can be reverted back to agricultural use.
Councillor French.
Thank you. Just looking at LP 12 for villages, new development will be supported where it contributes to sustainable of that segment and does not harm the wide open countryside. It does harm the open countryside, so you could actually use LP 12.
Thank you. Anybody further before we actually close the debate for the second time? Nope. Okay. Any further questions to officers? Nope. Okay. Do I have a proposal to go with officers' recommendation to approve planning permission? Nope. So that has failed. Okay. Can I ask for a different proposal? Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I propose to go against officers' recommendation and refuse this application, and the reasons for that are the loss of Grade 1 agricultural land. We are an agricultural area, and farming needs Grade 1 agricultural land. The quality of land is deteriorating as the topsoil blows away, and to lose this, although it's only a small part of it, it is a loss. There is better land and a better site for this development, but there are lots of agricultural land.
Councillor French.
I'm happy to second.
Okay, right, we're getting a bit ahead. Right, okay, so you'll have to second it. So do I have a seconder for the proposal? That will now be Councillor French. We will now go to the vote. If you support the new proposal, please raise your hand.
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
So the new proposal for not granting the application has succeeded. I will now hand over to Danielle Brooks to present agenda item number 9, FYR 250925F.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 9 seeks permission for the erection of 4 dwellings and the formation of a new access involving the demolition of the existing dwelling and outbuildings at Goultree Farm on High Road in Guyherne. The application is before members owing to the number of representations received contrary to officer recommendation. The application site is edged in red on the location plan and aerial photo. The application site is located on the west side of High Road in Guyherne. The 1.14 hectare site includes an existing dwelling known as Goultree Farm, along with outbuildings and an area of undeveloped scrubland/paddock land bounded by mature vegetation. The existing dwelling is separated from the adjacent development to the south by a 1.8 metre closed bordered timber fence. Residential development is situated to the north and south of the site, with the immediate dwellings known as Goultree Lodge and River Rise House, respectively. To the east, on the opposite side of High Road, is the River Nene, bounded by existing tidal defences embankment. The site falls within flood zone 1, save for the fringe of the site to the northwest of the rear that falls within flood zone 3. The proposed site plan and street scene plans are shown. The development proposal comprises 4 three-storey detached dwellings set in a linear arrangement fronting the highway. Parking for 4 vehicles is proposed to either side of the site frontage, with additional parking for a further 8 vehicles with a turning head set to the rear of the site that are accessed via a central shared driveway leading from High Road. The proposed elevations and floor plans for plots 1 and 3 are shown. Plots 2 and 4 would have a handed arrangement but would be similar. The dwellings are intended as 3-storey 4-bedroom dwellings as indicated on the plans and include 3 double bedrooms and 1 single bedroom, totalling a possible occupancy of 7 persons per dwelling. The overall dimensions of the dwelling at approximately 5.5 metres wide by 12 metres deep, with 4 bedrooms, will result in 2 of the bedrooms being undersized in respect of the recommended minimum floor areas set out with the nationally described space standard guidance of 2015. In addition, concerns relate to the overall amenity quality of the development. Policy LP16 Part H requires new development schemes to set aside a minimum of a third of a plot as private amenity space, and the current proposal under-delivers for each plot, with usable amenity space falling below 29%. Site photos of the existing site are shown. Photo 1 is looking west across the existing site with Galtree Farmhouse to the left side that's due to be demolished. Photo 2 is a closer image of the current state of the site. Photo 3 is looking south along High Road. You can make out the foot of the River Nene embankment to the left of the photo and Galtree Farmhouse to the near right, River Rise House beyond and further dwellings beyond that. Photo 4 is looking north along High Road with Galtree Cottage and Galtree Lodge to the near left and other dwellings such as Chestnut House and Red House beyond. Again, the proximity of the River Nene embankment can be seen to the right of the photo. Whilst the scheme is broadly acceptable in terms of design and character in accordance with Policy LP16, highway safety and parking provision in accordance with Policy LP15, ecological impacts in accordance with LP16 and LP19 are also acceptable. These benefits, however, attract only moderate weight in favour of the development. In contrast, substantial harm has been identified in several key areas. The proposal would provide substandard living conditions for future occupiers. Internal accommodation falls below the minimum room sizes set out within the described space standards, and external amenity provision falls below the policy requirement, resulting in a poor living quality environment. These deficiencies conflict with policies LP12 and LP16 and carry significant weight against the proposal. In addition, the application fails to adequately address flood risk concerns. In the absence of a robust site-specific breach analysis, it has not been demonstrated that future occupiers would be safe from flood hazards over the lifetime of the development. The sustained objection from the Environment Agency and the lack of sufficient evidence to support appropriate mitigation results in clear conflict with Policy LP14, and this also carries substantial weight against the proposal. Accordingly, the proposal is not considered to represent sustainable development and is contrary to the development plan as a whole, and therefore is recommended for refusal.
Thank you, Daniel. We have one speaker on this application, and I would now like to ask Shana Penny, the agent, to make her presentation to the committee. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application for 4 dwellings on the High Road frontage. As is set out within the committee report, the proposal is acceptable in principle, and I'd respectfully suggest that the matters before you this afternoon are capable of being addressed in a proportionate and policy-compliant manner. You will recall that this scheme was before you for 7 dwellings previously, and we've removed the rear element of the development as per your concerns. The current recommendation for refusal rests on 2 reasons. Firstly, concerns relating to living accommodation standards and private amenity space, and secondly, concerns regarding flood risk. I'll address each of these issues in turn. Turning to the first issue of internal space standards and garden provision. The report acknowledges that bedrooms 1 and 2 meet the nationally described space standards. The concern arises in respect of bedrooms 3 and 4. However, this is largely a consequence of how these rooms have been labelled and illustrated on the submitted plans, rather than any fundamental deficiency in the built form itself. Importantly, the application description does not fix the number of bedrooms or function of the bedrooms. As such, there is a straightforward and reasonable solution available through the use of a planning condition. We'd be entirely content to accept a condition specifying that bedroom 3 is to be used as a single bedroom and bedroom 4 is a study or home office. This approach would bring the development fully in line with the national space standards. Planning practice guidance is clear that conditions should be used positively to enhance the quality of development and to enable proposals to proceed where they might otherwise be refused. In this instance, such a condition would directly address the identified concern without requiring any physical alteration to the scheme. It's therefore both reasonable and consistent with the national guidance to resolve this matter through condition rather than refusal. In terms of private amenity space, policy LP16H of the local plan states the expectation for 1/3 of the plot to be garden space is a guide rather than a rigid requirement. The committee itself confirms that the proposed garden areas are broadly in the region of 1/3 of each plot. Given that the policy is written with an intentionally flexible manner and that the scheme broadly aligns with that guidance, it's difficult to conclude that the level of private amenity space is so deficient so to justify a refusal. When taken together with the ability to control internal accommodation through a condition, the overall standard of amenity provided by this scheme is, in my submission, entirely acceptable and consistent with the spirit of the local plan. Turning to the second reason for refusal, which is flood risk, and noting that the site is within flood zone 1. Here it's important to consider the recent planning history of the site. In 2024, an application for 7 dwellings was submitted under reference 240276. In that case, the Environment Agency accepted a mitigation strategy comprising finished floor level set at 2.2 metres AOD, at least 0.3 metres above typical ground level, and alongside flood resilient construction up to 1 metre above ground level. No refusal relating to flood risk was imposed at that time. In the current application, we're proposing exactly the same mitigation measures. There's been no change in national policy, no change in local policy, and no change in the site's flood risk context. Yet we are now faced with the reason for refusal suggesting that these measures are insufficient. I would suggest that this introduces an inconsistency in decision making, which is difficult to justify. In the absence of any material change in circumstances, it would not align with good planning practice to reach a different conclusion on technical issues. Furthermore, the Environment Agency's own consultation response provides a clear pathway forward. It states that where achieving higher finished floor levels is constrained by other material considerations, such as the building height and character, it's the applicant to provide justification and for the local planning authority to weigh those factors in the planning balance. If I can refer you to the indicative street scene, you'll see that the proposed dwellings sit comfortably within the established character of High Road. Increasing ridge heights to achieve higher floor levels would result in buildings that are visibly out of scale and incongruous within their context. That would introduce a clear and demonstrable harm to the character of the area. Therefore, there is sound planning justification for maintaining the proposed levels. When combined with the flood mitigation measures which were already accepted on this site, I submit that the development can reasonably be considered safe for its lifetime, and that the Environment Agency's concerns can be addressed through your planning judgment as decision maker. In conclusion, this is a scheme that's supported in principle, that delivers 4 new dwellings in a sustainable location, and where the reasons for refusal are not insurmountable. I therefore expect that planning permission is granted. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to invite members to put questions to Ms Penny. If you would like to do so, please raise your hand. Councillor Penny.
Hello, Charlie. Are there any other 3-storey dwellings along that road? It does seem a little bit out of character. Most of them are quite traditional built, and these are 3 stories. It does seem a little bit out of character. Are there any others along there, please?
I'm not aware of any 3-storey in the immediate vicinity of the site, but what I would say is we've looked at it really carefully. So to increase the floor levels to meet flood risk requirements, we've had to push rooms into the roof space, but we have tried to keep the ridge level down. So you can see from that street scene, everything's sort of level. So despite it being described as 3-storey, it is a traditional sort of 2-storey height.
Also, the building actually looks quite good. It's got solar panels on it, so somebody loved it in fairly recent history, because you don't spend money on a house that's falling down. Is there anything structurally wrong with the building that is there? Is it falling down, or is it just somebody wants to knock it down and put some more houses on?
I'd suggest the latter. Yeah.
I appreciate your honesty there.
Any further questions?
Thank you, Chair. Just a clarification. The reasons that Environment Agency, their objection is because of the 1.3 metre above ground level. Did you just say that has been addressed?
So there was a previous application on this site where we proposed the same mitigation measures as in 1.3 and 2.2, and that was accepted by the Environment Agency. For whatever reason, which is unbeknownst to me, it's now not acceptable to do that. But there is a slight clawback in their response, which says that if you're not able to increase the floor levels for reasons such as form and character, then that would potentially be acceptable, but that's a judgment call for the local planning authority. So my opinion is that, if we were to increase the ridge levels any higher, then we're going to see an inconsistency in the street scene. So for me, I would suggest that that was a reason to allow the flood levels to stay the same, bearing in mind it was previously accepted in any event. I would also highlight that the site's in flood zone 1. It's only a very, very small slither at the back, which is in flood zone 3, which I think is probably what's triggered the flood risk assessment. But as far as I'm concerned, it sort of all stacks up in flood risk terms.
Any further questions? No, thank you. I would now like to invite members to put questions to officers. Councillor Benny.
Thank you very much. Question for anybody on the floor willing to take it? We've just heard from Charla about the acceptable flood risk from a previous application. Could you explain a little bit to us about why that's not acceptable this time? Have things changed, or just give us a bit of background into the decision making that you've come to?
So the Environment Agency provided comments on the first flood risk assessment that was submitted, saying that there wasn't a site-specific breach analysis done. On the previous application, I'm unbeknownst, so forgive me, I'm not entirely up to speed with exactly what went on the previous application. However, the circumstances were that the mitigation measures on that application were acceptable. In this case, whatever evidence that was used on the previous application to prove that those measures were acceptable were not included in this application. They've just plucked those figures back from the previous application and said, well, it was acceptable then, it must be now. And the Environment Agency have said, where is your evidence to prove that? And that was not submitted with this application. So in respect of their policy sort of objection, ultimately, is that the evidence needs to be put there to prove that the 1.3 metres as suggested is acceptable, which was not included within the application. The applicant was requested to have that information submitted. They chose not to.
Okay, let's start. Yeah, so in effect, you've asked for something and they haven't put it forward, and therefore it's incomplete. Had it been submitted, you could have come up with an answer that would have mitigated that risk, or done away with that reason.
Correct. They may have mitigated the issues there, and then the Environment Agency may have removed their objections, but they did not in this case.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, certainly when I read it, I would class it as an incomplete application. And over the years we've been sitting here, we've always said if it's not complete, then won't get approved. It's not a complete application, and the officers have got it right.
Any further questions for officers? No? Right. Okay. Thank you. I would now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of material planning considerations and ask officers any questions relevant to the application. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Jim. I'm usually pro-development. I think officers have got this one right. The flood risk hasn't been completed properly, or it hasn't been, all the information hasn't been there. Truly, I think officers have got this one right.
Any further debate? Councillor Imafton.
Thank you, Chair. There's not much to add to that. I think it is not a complete application with the report by the EA. So I don't think there's not any more to say than to say the officers got this one right, and I will be supporting the officer's decision. Thank you.
Councillor French, did you want to speak?
No.
Right. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. Thank you, members. Does any officers have any points of clarification? Okay. So, do I have a proposer to go with officer's recommendation to refuse planning permission? Councillor Mafferdon. Do I have a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor French. We will now go to the vote. If you support the proposal to go with officer's recommendation, please raise your hand.
It's unanimous decision, Chairman.
Okay. That application has not been passed. Okay. I will now hand over to Danielle Brooks to present agenda item 10, FYR 250967.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 10 seeks outline planning permission with only access committed for the erection of one self-built dwelling at land north of the Chestnuts, Roman Bank in Newton in the Isle. The application is before members owing to the number of representations contrary to officer recommendation. Beg your pardon, I went one too far. I seem to be missing. Okay, so that should be the aerial photo and site plan, edged in red as it normally is, so apologies, but that's just about what we're looking at. You can see the aerial photo there anyway. Apologies, there's some slides missing. So as you can see, it's located on the north side of Roman Bank in the built form of Newton, outside the built form of Newton in the Isle. It's generally undeveloped area with some domestic paraphernalia on the site itself. It lies between existing residential dwellings on each side, and there's Harris fencing bounding the front of the site along Roman Bank. Further south of the site are some industrial and commercial buildings, which you can just about make out to the bottom right-hand side of that picture. The wider area is generally characterised by undeveloped agricultural land. The site lies within flood zone 1 and at very low risk of surface water flooding. The land immediately south of the site was previously subject to a planning permission for a residential dwelling under FYR 17 1167.0 and a subsequent reserved matters application. The current application site partly overlaps with the original red line boundary of that previous dwelling. Whilst there was an approval for this application, at the time of the LPA were unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and therefore the policies in the local plan were considered out of date in respect of a dwelling adjacent to the site to the south. There's since been a change of circumstances, and the LPA are now able to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, and therefore the proposal needs to be determined in accordance with the development plan. So as you can see, the site is located in a rural and isolated location, approximately 750 metres from the built form and settlement of Newton to the north. Leverington as well is off this photo, but it's approximately 1.4 kilometres to the site to the south. Apologies, I'm really tongue-tied today. Sorry, apologies for that. The rural nature of the site and significant distance to any services and facilities would render the site lying within an elsewhere location as set out in Policy LP3, and development in this location is restricted to essential operation of local rural enterprise, and the submission detail offered no justification in this respect and rather relies on the previous outline approval that was granted in 2017 for the adjacent site. In the absence of any identified need of the dwelling in this location, the proposal will be contrary to LP3 and therefore unacceptable in principle. The proposed indicative plan is shown. It seeks outline permission with only access committed for the erection of one dwelling. The indicative plan shows that the site will be accessed via a new access point onto Roman Bank that was previously approved under a reserved matters. Photo of the site, photo 1 is looking west across the existing site, comprising grassland with agricultural land beyond. Photo 2 is looking south along Roman Bank, with the dwelling known as the Chestnuts can be seen in the foreground. And photo 3 is looking north along Roman Bank. The hedgerow is the boundary to Churchill Lodge, which is the dwelling to the north side. So the site is considered to be in an elsewhere location, and there is no identified justification for a dwelling in this position, and therefore is contrary to policy LP3 and not acceptable in principle. However, the application is proposed as a self-build dwelling. However, given the plentiful supply of such sites in the district, it is not considered that this should carry any significant weight. A reason for refusal regarding the associated unilateral undertaking is recommended, therefore, to allow this matter to be addressed if any appeal comes forward. While there is existing development in the vicinity of the site, it's considered that the introduction of further built form would further urbanise this elsewhere location to the detriment of the character and appearance of the area. And the proposal is, however, considered acceptable in respect of amenity, flood risk and highway safety. However, overall, the policy is in conflict with local and national policy and therefore is recommended for refusal.
Thank you, Danielle. We have one set of speakers on this application. I would like to ask Liam Lunn Towler, the agent, and Mr. Mizzen, the applicant, to make their presentation to committee. You have 5 minutes between you.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Liam Luntowler. I'm the agent. Beside me is the applicant, Mr. Nissen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. For you today, we're asking permission for one dwelling sitting on approved residential land garden, acting as an infill between the dwellings of the Chestnut to the south and the Church Lodge to the north. The officer report and our design act statement notes in the 2017 outline permission for the Chestnuts. Under the current local plan, the site received permission for the construction of the Chestnuts. The reason for allowing the property, the Chestnuts, is because Fenland at the time did not have sufficient land supply. However, the site was still needed to be assessed on its economic, social and environmental benefits. When judged on this criteria, the land, which included the site before you today, was deemed sustainable for development. We understand Fenland do currently have a land supply and this application is different. However, I think it is important to make the committee aware of that 2017 assessment as it relates to this application. For economic benefits, the 2017 report said that the site would deliver limited but economic growth through the deployment of local trades during construction and provide economic contributions for the future. Residents using local amenities. For social benefits, despite the site's rural location causing a slight hindrance, the site will provide a house to contribute towards the housing need and assist in meeting the needs of the existing and future generations, and provide social benefits for the contribution to the community there. For environmental benefits, the site will be an infill near residential dwellings, and whilst a rural location means future occupants would be relying on the car, it will have no more of an environmental impact than the existing dwellings there. And given the proposal is only for one, the climate change impact is minimal. The 2017 report concludes with stating the economic and social benefits outweigh the environmental in favour of the dwelling being approved. To that end, there has been no material change of policy since that report, therefore no change in the opinion of the site's sustainability. As such, the one dwelling being asked for today, as infilling between existing dwellings, is sustainable and would deliver economic, social and environmental benefits to this area. The application is supported unanimously by the Newham Parish Council, and they summarise the application positively as an infill on a site capable of providing. Let me repeat. They summarise positively as an infill development on a site capable of providing a comfortable family dwelling. We know and appreciate the glowing support by the Parish Council. Application also has no technical objections for Drainage Board, highways, environmental health, and the site is within flood risk zone 1. The dwelling will allow the applicant to construct a new home and focus on their current needs, as the Chestnuts is becoming too big for them to maintain, and Mrs. Misson will soon need better ground floor layout to suit her health condition and requirements. To this end, a draft legal agreement has been submitted, and we are happy to assign this to finalise this agreement. Therefore, the application presented to members today has support from consultees to deliver a new family home, benefit from the lowest flood risk zone, and can be considered sustainable infill to provide wider benefits to away limited harm. We therefore respectfully ask the committee to approve this application, and we welcome any questions committee members may have. Thank you. He's happy to take any questions as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'd now like to invite members to put questions to Mr. Lundtowler and Mr. Nissen. Sorry. If you would like to ask questions, please raise your hand. Councillor French.
Thank you. Good afternoon. You did have full planning permission with your reserve matters in 2019. Can I ask why you didn't build it?
Really, we've done one, and that's financially.
So the Chestnut's dwelling house has been built to that end. It is built now. It's on
The
site.
Chestnut is built.
Yeah, to the south of it. We never proposed anything to build on as in between, as in where we are now, because at the time it wasn't necessary nor justifiable. We're asking for it now because Chestnuts is finished. The applicant has financials to pursue it, and ultimately, Mrs. Nissen needs some new accommodation at some point in the near future. Not right now. Within the next 2-3 years, she needs something to look for. So.
Councillor Rafferton.
Thank you, Chair. Can you please just tell me what is the actual site going to be used for if planning was approved today and it was built? Who's going to live there? Thank you.
It's intended for Mr. Nissen to my left and his wife, but carry on. And obviously they've got grandchildren as well, so make sure of that. But
sorry, I didn't quite get your question, sorry.
Okay, I'll add to the question again. Now, you said earlier that Chestnuts was built previously. Who lives in Chestnut now? And then who's going to live? Who's going to live in the new development?
If it was Sorry, gentlemen, can we have one person speaking at a time with the mics, please?
Yeah, I shall be living in it, and once it's built, one of my family will move into the house which I'm living in now, Chestnuts, because as I say, we have got a medical problem where we'll need future, what should we say, care. So that will be the situation. Oh, yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Rafferton.
Thank you. It's still based on the previous question. I'm trying to establish, do you have a historical link to the area? How long have you lived there? Yeah, could you just let us know that, please?
Yes, we do. My wife was born in Newton. She's lived there really all her life until we got married. Then we lived in Levington, which is just a mile down the road, and then we moved back to Newton. So we've been there 50 years, probably 55 years, that area. Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions? No. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I would now like to invite members to put questions to officers. If you'd like to do so, please raise your hand. Councillor Benny.
Thank you. Reason 3 for refusal says, in the absence of a completed legal agreement or other enforceable mechanism to secure the delivery of occupation, which you obviously know because you wrote it, so I know to read it out in full. Why hasn't there been a legal agreement drawn together? Is it something that can be done fairly easily, or is it something that hasn't been addressed properly, or can you give us a bit of background to the reasons for that refusal, please?
Thank you, through you, Chairman. So, and I think as the agent alluded to, a unilateral undertaking has been submitted as part of the application. But essentially, because of the other two reasons for refusal, it's sort of accepted good practice that if you're looking to refuse an application, then you have a reason for refusal. This might sound a bit sort of, yes, a bit contradictory to the advice given earlier about reasons for refusal, but essentially putting in an additional reason for refusal on relating to the unilateral undertaking then allows an inspector to deal with that matter should an appeal come forward. So it's purely there so that if the application is refused, it's a hook for the inspector to use to consider that matter at any future appeal.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions for officers? Nope. Okay. Thank you. I would now like to invite members to debate the item in respect of any material planning considerations and ask officers any questions relevant to the TPO. We've got relevant to the TPO. Oh, right. Sorry. Okay. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Councillor Benny.
Well, I was waiting for somebody else, but nobody else leapt in there, so I had to do it. Yeah, me and Councillor French went out and had a look at this the other day, and after we drove up and down the road several times, we found this little plot hiding behind a hedge. And truthfully, this is infill. This is, and you know, it's you know, we've got industrial units. If you look at the site to the left of it, all the way down the road, there's houses at the top of the road as well. It's got a house either side, and it's even got a letterbox, which we discovered. Yeah, I mean the site is cleared. It is ready for development. I fully sympathise with the applicant if he's run out of money and he couldn't do it at the time. I think we've all been in that position. You know, for the reasons it was granted before, this is a building plot. It looks like one, and it's suitable for having a house on it. I look at this, and if the gentleman's needs, he says he's getting a bit older and he needs a bit of help. Well, I'm getting a bit older and I might need a bit of help, so someone might help me one day. But no, especially you. No, but I mean, looking at this is not going to interfere with anybody else. He is the neighbour on one side. There's no objections from the neighbour the other side. It's Newton. There's been other development in Newton further into the village going the other way. And if things don't grow, they die. And I think that, you know, as a local man, we should be supporting him.
Thank you. Councillor Mafferdon.
Thank you, Chair. The reason I asked the gentleman if he was connected to the area was to establish whether he will stay local in the village or not. And as we know, we need villages to stay alive. We don't want people moving out of it. So for that reason, I am in line to support. I will support this application. Thank you.
Okay, David has like to come in there.
Thank you, through your chairman. I think Stephen might be pleased as well with it. Similar comment. The circumstances of the applicant, whether the applicant is local to the village, are completely immaterial to the application and the determination of the application. This is an application for a new build dwelling with no further supporting information in terms of personal circumstances, and essentially what members are looking at is a house for somebody, whoever that may be, in this location, acceptable rather than the circumstances of any one individual. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mafferdon.
Thank you. I do understand that, but this application was previously approved, wasn't it? And the only reason it wasn't built, like the applicant said, was financial reasons.
David?
Through you, Chairman. No, so that the dwelling to the south was granted planning permission in 2017 and has been built out. I think the point that the applicant was making was that they've not done anything with this site for however many years because essentially they've not been in the circumstances to do it. Notwithstanding that issue, ultimately in terms of whether it's the same applicant as the land to the south, whether it's a different applicant, again, the issue that members need to look at is whether a house in this location is acceptable or not. That's the crux of the determination today.
Councillor French.
Thank you. So you've got one house here and one house here, and you've got a plot. It's an infill.
Councillor Benny.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, well, if we look at it in what's in front of us, LP3. The whole of Newton's in LP3, isn't it? It's in the middle of nowhere. It's surrounded by fields. It's not right near the main part of the village, but it's spread out. The whole village it runs in different directions all over the place. So I don't consider that this is LP3. I think it's part of the settlement that is there. And LP16 is that it's damaging, or it has to provide a positive contribution to the character of the area. Well, the other two houses that are built either side of it certainly do add a positive contribution to the area. I wouldn't say it's a scruffy site and it needs tidying up, because that's not a reason to pass it, but it is nevertheless a plot. And I think when this is built, I think it will be certainly add a positive contribution to the area. And for that reason, I would be supporting this application. I think we should be doing what we can for local people, and in terms of land usage, I'd view these two reasons, and the third one is there for the inspector if it goes to appeal. I think the two reasons that we're really looking at here, I could certainly overcome those with building in the open countryside and positive contribution. So that would be my way of thinking on that one today.
Thank you. Councillor French.
Thank you. LP3 small villages. In this segment, development will be considered on its merit, but will normally be limited nature and normally be limited in scale to residential infilling or a small business. So it's different than infill.
Thank you. Any further? Nope. Nope. Okay. Stephen, you were trying to get in there at one point. Would you like to just come in at all?
No, Chairman, just something else, that if members wish to approve this, then you need to ensure it is subject to the 106 legal agreement that's referred to in refusal 3 and conditions, obviously.
Okay. Right. Thank you, members. Do any officers have any points of clarification?
Yeah, through you, Chairman. Clearly, listen to the debate. Members, if members wish to grant the application, again, that's clearly within their sort of gift to do so. If members wish to view this as an infill plot, that's their judgment. However, I'm not really sure that, just looking at the aerial photo there, that it could be deemed that this is within settlement of Newton and therefore is an infill plot for the purposes of LP3. And I think that interpretation, I think, would be an incorrect interpretation of the policy of the local plan. And I would suggest that members should perhaps think about whether that's kind of accurate or not in terms of putting forward reasons for granting the application. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor French.
Thank you. So I've listened to what you said, David. I still say it's infill. So you've got Sunny, whatever it is, one side and another. So what is their full address? Is it in Newton or is it elsewhere?
Through you, Chairman, I think we've had this discussion before at committee, where the policies of the local plan are not predicated on whether a postal address is within the village or whether people that live in the vicinity feel that they are residents of that settlement or not. There is a definition within LP12, within the footnote, which defines what the continuous built form of a settlement is, and it excludes groups of buildings which are clearly divorced from the main part of the settlement, as we've got here, as exemplified on the aerial photo. So if members deem that there is no adverse impact, that it's an appropriate location, then that is for members to. That's the decision that members wish to come to. Then there's no issue with that. But I think to say that it is part of the continuous built form of the settlement in Newton, I'm not sure how accurate that really is.
Councillor French.
Thank you. Right, I read LP3 again. I'm now looking at LP12. This is a problem with our local plan, which we did in 2014. It is so out of date, it's unbelievable. And you've got one policy LP3, totally contradicts LP12 and others. As far as I'm concerned, this is an infill and it accords with LP3.
Would anybody like to add to that? No? I think that's where we're heading to now. So, do I have a proposer to go with officer's recommendation to refuse planning permission? No? So that has failed. Okay. Can I ask for a different proposal? Councillor Benny.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I propose we go against officer's recommendation and approve this application. I think the LP3 is open for interpretation. Obviously, officers do it that way, not in any way, casting any doubt on their professional ability. That is not the case at all. But I think that maybe the committee looks at things in a slightly different way, and therefore LP3 we do consider this is part of the settlement, so that would be that. And LP16, a positive contribution. I think it will add a positive contribution to the area. And the legal agreement, I'm sure that if we ask David Nosely, he can work to that, and Danielle to formulate a legal agreement that will finalise this application.
Conditions?
Reasonable.
Fair as they always are. Thank you.
Do you require to see them?
Let's have a look, please.
Anybody else? Councillor French? You're seconding it. Okay. So, do I have a proposal for the seconder? And that's Councillor French. Okay. We will now go to the vote. If you support the new proposal, please raise your hand.
It's unanimous decision, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. That has been approved. Thank you for attending the meeting. This concludes today's business, and I declare the meeting closed at 3:25. The next meeting is on the 29th of April 2026.